This podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint. Check the missiles and all the full evacuation at this time. They're pulling them out.
10-1-1. Advise ready for escape.
Gun!
Another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
And I'm Chuck.
And we are back. I know I wasn't here the last couple. We've been running around crazy doing busy stuff. I'm sure the guys on Locker Room have been giving me crap for it. They like to give me crap for my hobby of being on stage. However, I will say this. We have been toying with for the last couple of weeks what I'm trying, because we used to release on Mondays. And I'm trying this. So if you guys have been weirded out over the last couple of weeks where you started to see, wait, why didn't the episode drop? And then it dropped later in the week. I've been experimenting with what days we drop. And I think I figured out kind of where we should land in moving forward. So we'll discuss this with on Locker Room, because we have to record. We're doing Locker Room tonight, as a matter of fact. So
yeah,
this is 3-4 weeks in the past. We did Locker Room live.
Yeah, it's weird how that works.
If we release our podcast, the War Stories podcast, on Wednesdays, then people will know. If it's Wednesday, go to YouTube, and if a new episode of War Stories is released that day, then that's the day you go to YouTube and you go and watch us do Locker Room live. So you could theoretically get 2 podcasts on the same day, but the Locker Room live is only going to be live. You're only going to see it if you join us on YouTube, because we won't drop it as a podcast until like Friday. Right? So
yeah,
we're going to try that.
Incentivize people to go to the live.
Go to the live and catch it live.
Yeah.
But this is not Locker Room Live. This is War Stories interviews, right? This and you could get all these interviews if you listen to them. If you want to see them, you can get them all on our YouTube page. I think most of them once we started to be able to like show guest faces and stuff like that. We still have occasionally guests where we can't show their faces, but this week's guest we can, because although he did a lot of cool Secret Squirrel shit, it sounds like he is now a retired Secret Squirrel.
Yeah.
And while we may end up in a position where he says, well, I can't talk about that part, we're going to try to get him to talk about as much as he can talk about. Tell us about our guest this week, Chuck.
Well, this week's guest is Ty Smith. And, I love guests like this because anytime you have a chance to talk to a tier 1 operator, it's pretty awesome. And they have a wealth of knowledge, especially in leadership and mentorship and everything like that. Ty Smith is a retired U.S. Navy SEAL. And he came on in 96, went through BUDS in 01. And in 03, he went to SEAL Team 8. Man, these bios, I just love him. And then the rest, I'll let him tell who he is, because this is his story, not mine.
Yeah. So I think your mic is muted, Ty, but welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I'll try to mute the mic when I'm not talking, because I have a 17-year-old pitty, and she's big and fat and laying next to me, and she's huffing and puffing. And
you know what? I have background noise cancellation on, so you should be okay. And plus, we love dogs, so
awesome.
You're more than welcome to just leave it.
Yeah, that's my pity.
I have a German Shepherd, and my daughter and her husband, who live with us while he's going to college, have a Australian healer. So we just have a sign up that says, we like our dogs better than you. So if you don't want to get covered in dog hair, don't come over.
That's awesome. Well, this is Hilo, of course, short for helicopter. And he's 17. I've had her since she was 4 months old. So
that's old for a pitty, right?
It's very old for a pitty. She's been the last of her litter for about 10 years already.
Wow. That's
yeah, mine made it to 12 and we had to put her down. And I can't imagine 17.
Did she get around pretty good?
Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, she's really starting to slow down as of late, but she gets around pretty good. She's had bad knees, hips, back since she was a pup because I adopted her from an organization out here in San Diego called itsthepits.org. And they had the San Diego PD had just busted a dog ring of horrible human beings that were raising them to fight them. And so they donated the pups over to It's the Pits, and I got Hilo from them, but she was all mixed up. She's had bad joints since day one.
Yeah. I just did some quick math. So after working with canine handlers, Chuck, do you know the actual formula for dog ages? It is not 7 years.
Because I don't.
It is 6.9 years because that's my favorite number.
No, jeez.
I have no idea.
Apparently, according to dog handlers I've worked with, it is the first 2 years of a dog's life is 10 years each. So
wow,
at 2 years, they are a 20-year-old. Right. That's why kind of that once they hit 2, they're not a puppy anymore. They're a dog. Right. But a lot of dogs, 18 months old, they're still kind of exhibiting puppy behavior. Well, that's because they're about 15. Right. When they're 18 months. And then apparently it's 5 years for every single year after that. So doing the quick math, Ty, your dog is 95. So okay. It's okay for her to be slowing down a little bit. She is like the Betty White of dogs. She's great.
Right.
Wow. She's with you, but she's just old.
That's impressive. She's
a happy
man.
girl.
Yeah.
She's got a good life, man.
As long as she's happy, you keep her happy, and that's right. So now this is where we like to start with all of our guests. Is talk to us a little bit about how you just ended up in service.
Well, I was born and raised in East St. Louis, Illinois, on the Illinois-Missouri border. So,
nothing going on there.
You know what I mean?
Actually, for the listeners who aren't watching this, Ty is black, and so anything about East St. Louis and being black in East St. Louis, it's a cakewalk. It's not a problem.
It was so much of a cakewalk that as soon as I graduated from high school, I went down to Navy recruiter's office and was like, get me the heck out of here just as quickly as you can. It wasn't that I didn't love my home, because I did, and I still do. Home is home. I grew up in the Midwest. That's America, and I love it. But I always knew that there was something more out there for me. And when I was 12 years old, I saw the movie Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen.
Oh yeah,
man. Dude, that was what did it. I was bitten by the bug. I had never seen anything like that in my life, and I was hooked. And I was like, Mama, that's what I want to be when I grow up. And my mom looked at me and she was like, baby, that'd be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, but if you want to do it, you can. And it never left me. And so that's how I ended up in the Navy when I graduated from high school.
I love that because I have a guilty pleasure love for that movie. Locker Room. So
it's a beautiful movie, man.
Tie on Locker Room, but we do the live show every week where we talk about kind of current events and our opinions and stuff. And it's one of our friends that I've known since we were 15. Another friend I've known since we were 15. One of them has never served, never nothing. He's our everyman, right? And then we have Matt. Matt's a Navy vet who ended up getting in trouble like a lot of vets after the Navy and going to prison, but then turned his life around. He's an EMT now and doing great stuff. Chuck is a veteran and he's a police officer. I'm, police officer. And we just kind of give it to you straight on what's going on in the world from those opinions. However, I will tell you that being that Matt and Marco and I grew up together, we all have a guilty pleasure spot for the movie Navy SEALs. And we know it's completely bullshit. Like Matt went into the Navy and he was like, yeah, dude, it's crap. Like total crap, but I still love that. I don't know why I still love that movie. I just do.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun movie. And my mom is a retired 27-year police officer in East St. Louis, by the way.
Wow. In East St. Louis. So, okay. Whoa. So,
I'm not kidding. My mom has been shot. My mom has been stabbed. She's been in the middle of breaking up gang brawls. Like, oh yeah, she's a bad lady. I wouldn't want to fight her.
I don't know. I want to confirm that I got this right. East
certified badass
is actually in Illinois.
Right. Because it's just on the east side of the Mississippi.
Right. It's not St. Louis, which is in Missouri.
Exactly.
It is the other side of the river, which is East St. Louis in Illinois.
So,
which is like when you have Kansas City that's in Missouri as opposed to Kansas City that's in Kansas.
how far is that from Chirac?
We're about 4.5, 5 hours south of Chirac.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my grandmother's folks, they all came up in the south side of Chirac. And then when my grandpa came back from World War II, he and my grandmother ended up settling down in East St. Louis, and he built the house that we all grew up in with his bare hands when he came back from that war.
Yeah. But I mean, so let me ask: did your grandfather? Where did he? What branch did he serve in?
Army.
Okay, so did his service?
He started out enlisted and was field commissioned while he was in Germany.
Wow,
that's amazing.
That's awesome.
Field commissioned to captain. I actually have his old. Is it a Timex or Seiko? No, I believe it's a Seiko. I have his old Seiko watch, the one that he wore the entire time he was in Europe fighting the war.
Wow.
And I'm a watch guy. I love watches. Right now, I'm wearing a special edition G-Shock, but that is one of the watches that's my prized possession. I keep it in my safe. I don't even keep it in a watch winder because I just don't want it going anywhere.
I love watches. I had my grandfather's watch. I just don't wear it because it's just I keep it as a keepsake. It doesn't work. Yep. But he was a bombardier in World War II. So did your grandfather's service influence you at all as well, or was it? But did it not enter into it? Did you kind of come to it on your own just from the movie?
Honestly, it was the movie that was. Well, how do I say this? The movie was reinforcement. The first person that, because all of my uncles were in the military, like Army, Air Force, but I was very, very young. I was very little when they were in the military. So I don't even remember them being in the military. I just knew that they were. But my aunt, Sep, her husband, Kelvin, my uncle Poochie, who's the only of my uncles that are still alive, and he's my uncle by marriage, but they've been married for more than 40 years. He was the first man that I ever saw in real life in a military uniform. And it was the day, I think I was 5 or 6 years old. And it was the day that he escorted my aunt home to that same house we were all growing up in, where my granddaddy had built that house. And he was in his starched Army fatigues, boots. I'd never even seen anybody in uniform, let alone someone with shoes that shiny, and they were boots. And I mean, he had it, right? And he walked up with my aunt Sep. Again, I was 5 or 6 years old, and I watched him walk in the house and ask my grandpa for her hand in marriage, like real men did back in the day.
Whoa!
And that married her and took her to Colorado Springs. Oh, dude, it is a day I'll never forget for my entire life. And so when you fast forward another 6 or 7 years, and I saw the movie Navy SEALs, like that was it. I was done.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, people in uniform, yes, and then Navy SEALs, that, right?
Well, and I think also it helped tremendously that my uncle Kelvin is just one of the best men I have ever known in my entire life. Again, he's not my blood uncle, he's my uncle by marriage, but for some reason, of all the men in my family, he was the one that gravitated toward me, and I gravitated toward him like immediately. As soon as he got out of the Army and they moved from Colorado back home to East St. Louis. And this is the guy that would take me fishing like every weekend, religiously. He would come to my football games, my wrestling meets. So he was really the guy that was like the father figure in my life. And so, I wanted to be like him.
And that makes sense. Like, because, we always say, I got blood that ain't family, I got family that ain't blood. Right.
That's right.
But, he's your uncle because he married your aunt. Right. But clearly your aunt is blood related to you. She shares DNA and genetic memory. She picked this man. She says, this is a good man. Your aunt is the closest thing you have to your mother genetically, right? Your mom and your aunt share exactly the same DNA base pairs, right? So it makes sense. I always say, aunts and uncles, there's a reason why they are brought into our lives, and they are a great influence. My wife was a great influence on my niece, and it's not her blood niece; it's my blood niece. But I married my wife; she's her aunt. That's how it works. I love my uncles, even if they weren't blood related to me. So that makes
and it doesn't matter. I'm one of those people that I believe 100% wholeheartedly, and I don't care who cares, in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And according to his teachings, we are all one because we all come from the same creator.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so blood is just blood. It's like blood schmud. Who cares? Like you said, I've got dudes that I served with in the military for 2 decades that if they call me right now and told me to drop everything and come and help, I'd be like, hey guys, sorry, I got to go. You know what I mean?
Right.
So blood
Absolutely.
don't matter.
Yeah. Well, we totally, you'll find that this is a very friendly podcast to that concept. We talk about it all the time. I believe that anybody who gets into this profession, for lack of a better word, anybody that gets into service, you don't do it for the money.
That's right.
You do it because you have a heart for service.
Yeah.
And those that don't do it for the heart for service, they're the ones who you find out real quick are they're doing it for ego. They're doing it for nefarious reasons. They're doing it to get one over on so those people out themselves to the people with a real heart of a servant real quick. And I'll tell you this, so you may not know this, but what we're basically the old expression, blood is thicker than water, right? That expression is poorly used because all you get is the blood is thicker than water part, right? And so what that implies is that family is more important than people that aren't family. But the actual quote is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. So the blood covenant, the pact that you make with a person, that is more powerful than any water that you shared a womb with, right?
That's
so
right.
It is more important to have family that you have faith in and are honorable men and women than it is to try and patch up or continue relationships with somebody who doesn't give a rip about you or doesn't treat you properly. Pick the right people in your life, and it sounds like you did. So you end up in the Navy. How old are you? You're 18.
18.
It's what year?
1996. Yeah.
96. Okay. So it's interesting because I'm trying to do the math on when I went to Matt's graduation at Great Lakes. I'm assuming you also went to Great Lakes because San Diego was closed and Florida's for women. Right. So that's close to the same time frame. It's a couple years later. You get out of Great Lakes, and your first gig in the Navy was not as a Navy SEAL, correct?
No.
Okay.
No. So when I first went in, I got pulled into the air crewman candidate pipeline. So I went down to Pensacola, Florida, did air crewman candidate school, then search and rescue swimmer school, and then I did anti-submarine warfare school. And
oh my God.
I hated ASW, and I made it very clear that I did not want to be there. That's not what I wanted to do. I joined the Navy because I wanted to be a SEAL.
So was this helicopter getting ready to drop torpedoes, like that kind of anti-sub warfare, or was it?
No. These are radar planes. They're looking for foreign submarines that are in water, in locations where they shouldn't be. Right. And so I made a very big deal about not wanting to be there. Long story short, eventually they let me go. I was still 18 when I checked into Buds for the first time after I left Florida. And I got, I think, about a day into Hell Week, and I quit. I wasn't too cold. I wasn't too tired. I wasn't too hungry. No, I was just scared, man. I was an 18-year-old punk kid coming out of East St. Louis, Illinois. I had a chip on my shoulder the size of a sequoia. And I thought I knew everything, and I didn't know anything. And I basically threw myself into the big boy league. And when I got out here in Coronado, where I am right now, I was like, man, I've never even I didn't even know men like this existed, let alone like I'm cruising around here like thinking I'm tough and like, no, man, I was just scared in the middle of the night.
Right.
So I quit and got out of there. And that's when the Navy sent me to 9545 school, AKA military police officer school down in San Antonio. Left San Antonio, took orders to Sardinia, Italy. It was as dreamy as it sounds. I ended up, I was supposed to stay there for 2.5 years. I ended up staying there for 4.5 years because I was in love with it and I made myself irreplaceable because I loved it so much. Within a year, I was pretty much fluent in the Italian language. And so I'd become the base translator.
Oh, no.
And then they sent me, to school to learn to be a criminal investigator. And so I'd become a pretty valuable asset to the base. And so they just kept like, hey man, you want to extend? Hell yeah, I want to extend. This place is awesome. And I ended up staying there for about 4.5 years. And I was actually going to get out of the Navy, guys, and I was going to stay. I loved it so much. I was going to get out of the Navy. I was applying to the University of Rome, and I was just going to stay in Italy for the rest of my life.
No way.
That was my plan. But on this normal day, a day that I thought was normal and just like any other day, I ended up on an airplane flying home to see my mom because a Navy Red Cross message had come across saying that my mom was sick and was in the hospital and I needed to come home. And so I got on an airplane to fly from Sardinia, Italy to Rome, from Rome into New York City, from New York City to St. Louis. And as I was on the flight from Rome to New York City, somewhere over London, England, the pilot comes over the loudspeaker and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really, really sorry, but we have to land this aircraft immediately. All of airspace is being closed.
Was it 2001?
So,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know exactly where I'm going with this. And so everybody's kind of looking around like, hey, what's going on? We're like, and so you guys know there were the phones in the back of the headrest in front of you and they had a wire. You could pull it out, swipe your credit card, make a call.
Yeah.
And I was in the aisle seat on the left side of the plane, and to my right, in the aisle seat on the right side of the plane, was an old black lady that was about 2 or 3 shades darker than me. And so she pulled that phone out of the headrest in front of her, swiped her credit card, called her husband, who was in New York City, to find out what was going on, because the pilot said, we don't know what's going on. We just know something's happening in New York City. And I'm sitting there looking at this lady, and everybody's looking at her, waiting to see what happens. And she's talking very low. And the last thing she says is, I understand. I love you very much. And she hung up the phone and everybody's just like, what? They're just waiting. I watched the blood drain from this lady's face, from the top of her scalp down to the bottom of her chin. She went from being 2 or 3 shades darker than me to 2 or 3 shades lighter than me. I was like a 21-year-old kid. I had never seen anything like that in my life. And so she looks up and she just kind of whispers, terrorists are flying airplanes into buildings in New York City. And we were flying into New York City. And so they ended up downing us. I got on it. We were somewhere outside of London. I hopped on a train, got my butt up to the embassy as quickly as I could, checked in, called my command, let them know that I was okay. And then eventually, when they reopened the airspace after, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, everything was shut down. I got home, saw my mom. She was out of the hospital. She was fine by that point. I got back out to Sardinia, Italy. And that day, my Navy career counselor walked up to me and said, hey, man, you still want to go to BUDS training? Because I've got orders for you to leave immediately. And I was just like, of course I want to go back to training. Let's go. And so I
that fire burned in your belly.
Bro, just as angry as y'all were, I was just as angry.
Right. Yeah.
And so I checked into SEAL training for the second time in February of 2002.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
So when all that happened, you're on the plane, you're flying into New York, and then you have to ground and you have to do all this stuff. And then the recruiter comes up to you and the recruiter is like, hey, you still want to go? I got orders right here. That fire inside of you, must be burning hot. And when you get to BUDS, what was the stark difference between the first time you were there to this time? And how did that feel? How did that make it different for you?
That is a great question. I love that question. Thanks for asking. So the first time I showed up, again, I was just this 18-year-old punk kid, Chuck. I thought I knew everything. I didn't know anything. I had no idea what I was getting into. I saw this movie when I was a kid, and I was like, that's what I want to do. And that was it. And of course, I read every Navy SEAL book, played every video game, watched every movie, just like any other dreamer. But I had no idea what I was getting into. And so I didn't I took it seriously to the point where I knew I had to be in really, really good shape, but I didn't take it seriously up here and in here at all. Whereas the second time around, when I showed up, not only was I angry and like beyond angry and like put me on a plane to go defend my country right now, but also I knew that, hey, this is really serious right now. And in fact, the night that I checked into the Naval Special Warfare Center just right down the street here, it was about 2:00 in the morning. There were 2 other trainees that were on duty sitting behind the desk to check me in. And then there was one instructor on duty, and he came out. And when I tell you the air was on fire, the atmosphere was on fire. It was one of the most serious tones I had ever felt in an atmosphere in my life. And he walked out, and he must have only said like 6 words to me, took my orders, looked at him. He looked me in my eyes like I was a man, and he spoke to me like I was a man. He said, "You know why you're here, right? You know what we're getting ready to do, right?" Yeah, roger that. All right, be a man, go do it. Gave me my orders and had him check me into my room. And I sat in my room thinking about what he had said to me. And I knew that without him actually saying it to me verbatim, I knew that what he was saying to me was like, hey, we're going to war. You're volunteering to go fight on behalf of this country. Are you sure you're ready? And this is what you want. And I knew I was in the right place. And I knew that there was just no way in hell they were going to get me out of there. They would have to drag my dead, lifeless corpse off that beach before I rung that bell again.
Well, we all know like the expression, your mind will quit 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times before your body will, right? That doesn't mean you can show up to buds with, a blood type of Rocky Road and, a BMI of 7,000, right? Like you have to be ready for what's coming. But that being said, it does come down to where your mind's at. If your mind ain't right, it doesn't matter how good a shape you're going to be in. There are guys that have gotten through buds and they're not in the best shape of anyone in the class. There are studs that come out there in peak physical condition and they ring that bell quick because it is a mental game. And it sounds like your heart was it was in the place it needed to be. And which is probably actually great because if you'd have gone through it the first time and made it, things might not have worked for you the way they worked. God's timing is perfect, right? So you went when you needed to go and you made it through when you needed to make it through. And it's interesting because the conversation you're talking about is similar to the last dinner party I had with the family before I started the police academy. My old man had been a cop with LAPD, and at dinner, he looked me in the face and he goes, "Hey, I got to ask you something before you start the academy." I said, "What?" And he goes, "Can you kill somebody?" And he just blunt, "Can you kill somebody?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "How do you know?" And I said, "Just because I've never questioned it. If it needs to be done, it needs to be done. I understand why it needs to be done. I don't have any problems with it. I don't look forward to it, but it is what it is." He's like, "Okay." And it was because he wanted to know that I had wrapped my mind around that very question. And it sounds like that first person you met who took your orders wanted to know that very same thing is, are you here for the reasons that we need people? Because if you're not, just turn around.
Oh yeah. And little did he know, I was there for exactly that reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude. So, yeah, it was just then that time it never, and that time around, like it literally not once ever even crossed my mind that, hey, I'm not going to make it through training this time. No, I was just fired up and happy to be there every day.
Right. Mm-hmm. If I die or become physically incapacitated and you have to drag me off the field, fine. But that's it. I'm not doing it.
But that's the only way.
Yeah.
You're
going to have to make me.
Yeah. And the way you said that, brother, I mean, that was fucking gave me chills, man. That was fucking awesome because I can tell the fire in your stomach. Then you still have it when you tell that part of that story, and you're like, I'm like, dude,
yeah,
makes me want to get better and
Well, so-
re-enlist and go and do cool shit.
That's right.
Our bodies won't do it anymore, Chuck. I want to. So we had an
I
incident.
know, right? Like,
Yeah, we had an
Yeah.
incident up here recently. I'll tell you about it after we finish. But we had an incident up here recently that was a critical incident, made national news. And my job is adjacent to police work, but it is not police work. And I deal with cops a lot for my job. And I had a guy coming over to my house to help me with a project around the house. And he was like, "Hey, I can't make it. I got to go respond to XYZ." And I said, and my instinct was to say, "Where do you need me?" Right. And then I was like, damn it, I don't do that anymore. Like I'm the old guy, it sucks, but it's a young man's sport, and I get it.
oh yeah.
But at the same time, your expertise, your mind, the things that you carry now in your heart, you can pass that on, right? And we'll get to that because that's one of the things you're doing now with Hero Consulting. But it's called War Stories, and we would be remiss if we didn't ask you at least, like, so you saw the movie Navy SEALs. You had this picture in your head. Did anything you ever did ever live up to the movie, or was it cooler?
Oh, it was way cooler. Way cooler. Oh my goodness. Way cooler. I mean, again, I got to deploy to Iraq and Afghanistan 6 times,
Wow.
2 deployments with SEAL Team 8, 2 deployments with SEAL Team 8, and another 3 deployments with SEAL Team 1 and 1 deployment with 6. And so I got to do everything that I had dreamed of doing. And the good part about it is that I didn't have to do any of it from the water. Right? All of my fighting was either in the streets of Iraq or the mountains of Afghanistan, which is where I wanted to be.
Right.
Did you get to do some halo jumps into
I
hot
did
zones?
plenty of jumps. No. I did plenty of training jumps. I never got to jump into a real world
combat jump.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you've seen the show SEAL Team, right?
Mm-hmm. It's actually pretty good, man. Like all of the actual SEAL Team guys that I know, they're like, yeah, man, it's pretty. I can't really say anything about that one. It's actually really
like
good.
It's like the best of the cop shows. Like there's a cop show called Southland. I always tell people, I'm like, it ain't perfect, but it's damn close. I can't really nitpick at it too hard.
Bosch is pretty good too, but I'm not a Navy SEAL. I'm Navy adjacent.
He's a Navy.
I wouldn't say the men's department because look, we got a Navy SEAL right here, and he could beat my ass.
Nah.
But I mean,
well, no, that's just
when I watched it. Yeah, that's true. My back's fucked up. When I watched it, I was like, "This is pretty accurate." And then I talked to another Marine. He's like, "That's not accurate." I'm like, "You're just jealous, bitch." So that's pretty awesome that it's accurate. Now, what kind of cool stuff?
Yeah, of the things you can share.
Yeah, what could you share that you did that was like maybe something that was like very difficult and hard, and maybe you were scared? Because I know Navy SEALs, y'all don't get scared, right? I mean, we're human.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, I'm a human being.
If you don't get scared, you're a serial killer.
Times, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I've been afraid plenty of times, but I will tell you. I'll start with this story. I will tell you the story of when I've been more afraid than anything in my whole life. The time I was most afraid in my entire life was in the summer of 2014. I was a platoon chief at SEAL Team 1, and I had gotten the opportunity so I got the platoon chief position because I was just coming back from the Tangi Valley of Afghanistan, and I was out there with gold, and I made E7 while I was out there with gold. I was permanently attached to SEAL Team 1, but was fortunate enough to get a call from the East Coast saying, "Hey, do you want to deploy with a Tier 1 unit?" And I'm like, "Of course I do." And I got the opportunity also because my senior enlisted advisor was a former Red Squadron guy, and so he had hooked it up. And so I made E7 while I was out in the Tangi Valley with Gold Squadron, and that was a thumper of a deployment. Unfortunately, about halfway through, that's when we lost Extortion 17. Lost a lot of my friends on that deployment, including Johnny Foss and Kevin Houston's my bros I wear everywhere I go. But the point of that was I came back from that deployment, and my command master chief at SEAL Team 1 knew that I was uniquely familiar with the Tangi Valley, right there at the mouth of the Tangi Valley, Baraki Barak District, Logar Province, Afghanistan, one of the most dangerous places in all of theater. And so he said to me, hey, I think you're ready for a platoon. You just made chief. I'm giving you a platoon. I know you want to go back to Afghanistan. I'm sending you and your boys back out there, probably going to go back to the Jalalabad, Baraki Barak district area. And that's where we ended up going. And about halfway through that deployment, and this was the most kinetic deployment of my entire 20 years in the military, by the way. And I was just extremely lucky. I was blessed that I was the chief that my command master chief picked to lead the platoon that was going out to Baraki Barak district, Logar Province, Afghanistan. I can never stop thanking him to this day. He put a massive amount of responsibility on my shoulders, and he knew what he was doing, and he trusted me to carry it. And I love Chris Good, and I will for the rest of my life. And so about halfway through that deployment, we had already been in like at least 30 or 40 gunfights. And I mean big gunfights, not like somebody took a pop shot at us from like 400 yards away. No, I mean like, hey, we're getting shot at from all four sides, and they're anywhere between 300 yards and 15 yards away from us. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced in Afghanistan. And it was the middle of the summer, so it's fighting season. Everything's green, so we're fighting from tree line to tree line. I mean, literally tree line to tree line. Like, no, they're in the tree line 25 yards across from us. They're screaming at us, and we're screaming at them and throwing up the middle finger and returning fire. Right?
Yeah.
And so in the middle of this deployment, we went out on an operation to assault a Taliban stronghold in the middle of this town called, I'm not going to say the town name. I won't get that nuanced with it.
All good. Yep.
But the day before, we had been watching over ISR, the Taliban basically do a mass inventory of all of their weapons in the middle of this town. And my OIC, my officer in charge, and I kind of looked at one another as we were watching the ISR, and he's looking at me and I'm looking at him. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, that's where we're going tomorrow. Get the boys ready. And so we planned a concept of operations to go out there and walk right into the middle of their home and kick the hornet's nest. And that's what we did. And so we went out on that op, got in a massive four-sided gunfight. And I had 24 of my guys with me that were SEALs, and 2 of them were EOD techs. But I also had 5 Army 1st to the 502nd Uplift guys with me, because they were the ones that were standing watch on the walls of our compound right there at the mouth of the Tangi Valley. We were 10.5 kilometers away from any support. And so I had 35 Army guys with a couple of Rangers sprinkled in there with them to basically kind of run the show and hold down the fort. And so those guys, when I got there, I realized immediately, like, man, why are these guys all depressed? And apparently the platoon of SEALs that were there before we got there were very arrogant. Their leadership, I should say, was very arrogant, didn't really let them do anything because they weren't special ops. And I was like, well, that's dumb. I need every gun in the fight that I can get in the fight. Y'all American, right? Let's go. And so I had my LPO break those dudes up into another 4 fire teams. And every time we went out on an op, a platoon of Navy SEALs, I would take 5 conventional Army guys with me, right? And at the end of that deployment, I ended up writing all 35 dudes up for combat action ribbons and valor awards. And most of them, it was the first time anybody had written them up for combat action. And to this day, those dudes call me up and say, hey, Chief, we just want to check on you, see how you're doing. And like, dude, that was the pinnacle of my career, knowing that I affected not just the lives and careers of SEALs, but of Army guys that weren't even in special forces. But I'm like, I'm responsible for them. This is called leadership. And so anyway, we go out to Barbary, kick the hornet's nest, get in a massive 4-sided gunfight that lasts about 6 or 7 hours. Wow. And we Winchestered an AC-130 gunship in that fight. Like, they were just like, you guys, good luck. We got nothing left to drop. Like, God bless you. We hope you get back to the base safely.
What's going through your head at that point when you're calling for
having the time
Winchester?
of my life.
Oh my God.
I'm having the, well, fortunately for us, it was us operating in that area, and there was an Army ODA unit that was operating in the area, and that was it. So every time we went out on an op, which was every other day on like clockwork, we had a tier 1 stack of air above us, AC-130 gunships, A-10 Warthogs, fast-moving jets. We had Apaches, Cobras, and we were getting in so many fights and having so much fun doing it that by that time in the deployment, the Army pilots were literally getting in screaming matches with one another to see who was going to fly to support whenever the guys from Barak were going out, because they knew we were going to get after it. They knew they were going to action some targets if they were going out to support us. So just because we Winchester the AC-130 gunship didn't mean that we were asked out. We still had a bunch of air overhead, and that gunfight. It was one of the coolest things I remember about that gunfight was the Army staff sergeant that was with us, and he was this massive dude, and he was he was like a big old teddy bear.
Was it Reacher?
What's that?
Was his name Reacher?
No. Yes. Find somebody that's not cracking a Navy SEAL movie joke, but an Army movie joke instead. I love it. Or an Army show, right? And so,
well, you said he was Army, so his name's got. If he's massive dude, it's got to be Reacher, right?
It's got to be. So in the middle of this gunfight, I am down in a ditch, moving forces around, making sure my boys are okay. And he comes running over to me in a hail of gunfire, right? This big old dude is running over. I'm like, get over here, get out. He gets in the ditch, and he's got this massive smile on his face. And I'm like, you okay? He's like, yeah, Chief, you don't understand. I just got my first confirmed kill. I just smoked 2 dudes that were trying to flank us over. And he literally runs over to me in the middle of a hail of gunfire because he's so excited. He just got his first confirmed kills that he just can't wait to tell me.
You know what's funny is I think of that scene in Band of Brothers where there's a lieutenant who later gets promoted to captain, and he's like, there's a team on the other side of the village that needs a message, and he's like, okay, what's the message? They're like, well, we need to tell him this. He goes, okay, and he takes off running down Main Street as bullets are hitting next to him. He delivers the message. He goes, what's your answer? What do you mean? Just what's your and he goes, turns around, goes back the other way.
I remember that scene.
Yeah. Right. Like, and so I know I'm going to say this, and I know you're going to, because we've done enough of these shows. I've been there. My co-hosts have been there. There comes a moment, right? First of all, if you put on a police uniform, you knew what you signed up for. Nobody gets drafted into the police department. And when it comes to the military, nobody gets drafted into the military anymore. Anyway.
Not anymore. Yeah.
Especially, you don't get drafted into a tier 1 team. No special ops, no operator, nobody, right? So when you put on, it's the line in Braveheart where they decide to go to war, and the guys that are listening to William Wallace, he says, I'm going to pick a fight, and all his leaders say, well, looks like we didn't get dressed up for nothing, right? Like that's kind of, there's this, your buddy signed up, you signed up, you pay, like this is what we came here to do. You don't want to not do the thing you're trained to do, right? But there also is a moment where you go, well, this might be how I die. And if so be it. I'm going to go out the way I want to.
Like a man.
Yes, you make peace with it.
Again, you're going to have to drag my lifeless corpse off the battlefield, and I promise you, I won't be going by myself.
Right. My favorite one I've seen in a long time, and I want to have this turned into a shirt, but Chuck knows the environment I work in now, it would not go over well. It was something I saw that says, I came into this world kicking, screaming, and covered in somebody else's blood, and I have no problems going out the same way.
I love that.
And I just, was there not, correct me if I'm wrong, there must have been a moment where you go, you know what? Okay, this might be the day.
Well, so I'm getting to that. because that was just the first gunfight of the day.
Oh, well,
right.
Oh
was
my gosh.
Oh yeah, it was one of those days. Again, like remember, Tom, I'm telling you a story about when I was more afraid than I've ever been in my entire life to this day. I just haven't gotten to that part yet.
Oh, well, so, here we are.
Yeah. No, that wasn't it. That was just the comic relief before I lay it on you, right?
Okay, go for it.
And it's funny because I'm going to finish your part of the story now. So I'm like, yeah, that's great. Get back in the fight. So he's like, okay, he gets up and he runs through a hail of gunfire back over to where his fire team is. And I was just like, could have stayed right next to me, bro. But anyway, all good. And so we get out of that gunfight. Like we whip the ever-loving you-know-what out of the Taliban. We end up extracting, getting out of there. And as we get back to where our vehicles were staged, we get on the radio and we're letting the SOTA, the Special Operations Task Force, know that like, hey, we're good to go. We're getting ready to head back to Combat Outpost Baraki Barak. The commanding officer of the SOTA gets on the radio and he was like, negative, Chief, Lieutenant, I need y'all to come over to Fob Shank and debrief us on the fight that we just listened to y'all have for the last 6-7 hours. Because Fob Shank was only like 10.5 kilometers away. So if we needed help, like we were a ways away, but it's close enough to where if somebody's in a massive gunfight and bombs are dropping 10.5 kilometers away, you hear all of it, right? And so it was such a massive fight. And again, we Winchester an AC-130 gunship for Pete's sake. And so he said, hey, I need y'all to come over to the SOTA and debrief us on this fight you just got out of, right? Come and tell us a war story. And so that's what we did. We went over to Fob Shank. And to get in and out of the Tangi Valley, it's one way in, it's one way out. And it was Route Georgia. And in fact, our entire, our objective for that deployment was to pacify the Tangi Valley so that the Taliban stopped blowing up convoys on Route Georgia, because that's when the retrograde had been ordered. That's also why we were the only ones there fighting. Nobody else was allowed to go out and fight because we were trying to retrograde out of Afghanistan. And as the convoys were coming out of Route Georgia, they were getting blown up. And so the SOTA basically said, hey, go out there and kill all the Taliban so that they stop killing Americans. We're trying to get out of here, right? And so we get over to the SOTA. We do our thing. We talk to the command master chief, the commanding officer. We give them the debrief. It was great. High fives. They, were very happy with our work. And so I'm looking, and it's the daytime, because again, remember, this is when the retrograde was happening. President Obama was locking down rules of engagement. He made that tremendously dumb rule that even special operations couldn't do nighttime raids. Right. And you had to take a partner force out with you. And so we did all of this fighting in broad daylight, by the way. We walked into the middle of Taliban country and said, hey, we're here to fight. Let's go. In the middle. We took away our secret weapon. We own the night. We're like, nope, even playing field. Here we are. Let's throw down. And so as we're getting ready to leave Fob Shank, because I am getting on my boys in my OIC, and I'm like, hey, sir, we got to get out of here. I don't want to be on Route Georgia when the sun sets. If it gets dark and we're still here, we're staying the night at Fob Shank. All right. So if you guys want to get back to your hooches, like, we need to go. And so after about 15 minutes, I'm like, hey, what's going on? What's taking so long? Why aren't we loaded up? And so I get on the radio with my LPO. He was like, I'm waiting on a fire team. I'm like, well, where are they? He was like, I don't know, Chief. They're doing something. Go find them now. We need to get on the road. I don't want to be on Route Georgia at nighttime. And so eventually I get a full head count and we get on the road. It's still daylight, but we're losing daylight.
Okay.
And about 10 minutes outside of Fob Shank, somebody calls the convoy to a stop. And that at that point, we were about a half a mile from the spot in Route Georgia where I knew that if we were going to get ambushed, that's where we're going to get ambushed, because it's a hairpin turn. And so we were still about a half mile before that. And I'm like, hey, why are we stopping right now? Like, now I'm starting to get angry. I'm like, boys, why are we stopping right now? And I hear somebody come over the radio and they go, the popcorn machine fell off the vehicle. And I was like,
oh my,
what? What are you talking about?
Is that what the fire team was getting?
That's what the fire team was getting. They were stealing a popcorn maker. It was
Shut
an
the
old,
fuck up.
like serious movie theater style
Oh,
tall popcorn
shit.
maker.
Wow.
They were stealing it from Bob Shank.
And you're like, I'm
They were
sorry, say
trying to-
again.
Right?
Confirming
Because we had a
popcorn
movie
maker.
because they built the movie room at our combat outpost, and so they were like, "Oh, that would be perfect."
I mean,
Bitch, you fucking ganked.
I mean,
priorities.
They were right?
Priorities.
And so, and now I'm angry, right? And I'm like,
Right.
hurry up, let's go. So they get the popcorn maker loaded up, and we're taking off. We get out of there. As we're coming, now we go into the hairpin turn. We come out of the hairpin turn. We're going to the left, which is for us now. We're starting to travel to the northwest. And so on our right, high terrain, all mountains. I don't like it.
No,
on our left, like literally on the left side of the road, there's a gully that is that a gully? No, it's like a ditch. And it's like 3 feet deep,
Sure.
3 or 4 feet deep, but it's a ditch. And then right on the outside of it is a tree line. And then about another 100 yards behind that tree line is another tree line. But this ditch is running alongside of the road. It's like 5 to 6 feet from our vehicles, right? So again, I don't like it.
Great place for an ambush.
Great place for an ambush, Chuck. And what do you know? As we're coming out of that hairpin turn, I'm in vehicle 2. I'm in the front seat, and RPG right on top of the turret gun. Boom!
Shit.
From the high ground. This must have been, I mean, dude, this must have been a freaking sniper of RPG rounds, of RPG shooting, okay? From the high ground, the dude shoots an RPG rocket and nails the top of vehicle 1 right on the turret, takes that 50 cal out. And unfortunately, nobody was up there because we were in MRAPs and they were all mechanized. So I had a guy literally with a video game controller that was controlling that gun. So fortunately, none of my boys were up there to get hit. And the only thing that saved those dudes in that vehicle was that the dude might have been good at shooting RPGs, but he wasn't good at loading them because he loaded the wrong round in that thing. And so if he'd have loaded an HE round and high explosive round in that RPG, he'd have smoked every one of my boys in that vehicle. Right. Glory be to God, he did not. And so that initiated the ambush, and they came out of the buildings that were right there next to us on the bottom of the high ground. They popped up out of the ditch 5 feet from the vehicles that we were in, spraying the vehicles, right? You got RPGs coming from all over the place. Of course, at that moment, comms go down. So we can't talk to the birds that are right over us. They have no idea we're in the ambush, the worst ambush I have ever experienced in my life. And I've been in some nasty ambushes, and this was the icing on the cake. We had 4 CMRG guys with us. So these were the Afghani EOD guys. And we would take them out with us because everywhere we went, I was like, no, y'all walk in front of us by 100 yards. Like, no, you're going to get blown up for your own country. My boys aren't getting blown up. And that is the only reason why I would take those guys with us. Well, they were in thin-skinned vehicles. And as soon as the ambush started, they literally bailed out of their vehicles and ran.
Damn.
Left the vehicles right there in the middle of the road on Route Georgia. Again, you can't go around them. You can't nothing. So now we're stuck there in the ambush, getting hammered from all 4 sides. And I hear the door behind me open up because I'm talking to the boys on the radio. The guns on the vehicles are lighting up. Dudes are getting after it. But I'm on the phone. I'm on the radio with one of my junior officers because he gets out of his vehicle and runs after the Afghanis to go get them out of the compound they ran into to hide. Because he's like, hey, you need to drive your vehicle so we can get out of here. You're blocking the road. Like, let's go. And so he ran in there to get those guys, right? That scared the daylights out of me because I saw one of my junior officers doing a one-man room entry into a compound that even the Afghanis, when they just ran in there, right, that they didn't clear it. But he thought he was doing the right thing. He was trying to save his boys and get that vehicle out of the way. And so as he's doing that, to my left is my driver, who wasn't a SEAL. He was one of the comms guys that he was our support. And he had been begging me all deployment, like, Chief, please take me out on a mission with you guys. And I'm a leader. I love all of my men, right? And so I'm like, okay, yep, I got you. Like, you can drive our vehicle. Like, probably gonna get in a gunfight, but you're gonna be safe. You're in the vehicle. It's up armor. And so I picked the helmet out to take him on, right, and to let him drive. And so I was super impressed with this guy because he was as calm, he was as cool as a fan. And he looks over at me and he goes, "Hey, Chief." I was like, "What's up, Trap?" And he goes, "There's 5 guys right here next to the vehicle shooting my door." And I mean, he was that calm, right? This was a support technician, a communicator, not a gunfighter, right? But he was that calm. I was impressed. And I looked over at him. I was just like, okay. I wasn't too worried about it because we're in an MRAP and they're shooting AKs. Right. Like, we're hearing the rounds bounce off of the vehicle, but I'm not worried about the up armor being penetrated. What did worry me is at that moment, I hear the door of our MRAP opening up.
Oh, God.
And I turn around to look, and one of my boys, one of my second platooners, one of my best friends, is getting out of the vehicle to engage these guys. And he gets out of the vehicle with a 240 Golf. And I'm immediately screaming, "Get back in the vehicle, get back in the vehicle, close the door." I could see the muzzle flash from AKs out the backside of the door of dudes trying to engage him, dudes trying to shoot him. He gets out and he leans around to go and engage these guys. And he goes, "Click." And I go, and I'm yelling, "Get in the vehicle, get in the vehicle." He racks it, gets back around, ka-chunk again. And I am screaming, "Get, for the love of God, please get in the vehicle." But he can't hear me because all the gunfire and all the fire. Fortunately, these dudes, they don't see him peeking around the corner with this 240 Golf. Fine, he racks it again, and I'm screaming, "Get in the vehicle." Finally, the gun goes off and he just chops these 4 or 5 dudes in half, right? And so immediately he gets back into the vehicle. I'm like, "Close the door, close the door." He gets the door closed. And eventually my JO gets the Afghanis back in their vehicle. They take off and we're able to now blow through and basically shoot our way out of there. And we got back to our combat outpost. Had to call the SOTF again, and they were like, you guys just can't stay out of a fight, can you?" I was like, "Well, sir, you sent us here for a reason. We're doing our jobs," and he was very happy with us. But when we got back to the combat outpost, we would sit down and debrief every op in that movie room, right? And so it's like, "Hey, man, if you finish installing your popcorn maker, bring all the boys in here so that we can debrief this op," right? And so that's what we did. And it was the most serious talk that I had to have with the boys that whole deployment. And I sat in front of them, my EOD chief, Chris Bear, Angry Bear, who's retired now too, sat down in front of them, my LPO and my third chief. And we just told them stories of witnessing our friends die and how it affected us. And we reminded them, because most of my platoon were all brand new guys. They were in their first deployment. They had never experienced combat. They're not only are they ready to get after it, but like they didn't know what they were getting into, because they didn't know, like, "Hey, man, yeah, war is ugly. It is ugly. It is hell on earth. Bullets are real. They will kill you. You step in the wrong place because you're not, being situationally aware. You will die, and your friends will get blown up too." You know what I mean? And so I'll be completely honest with you guys. So I kicked it off, and I will be completely honest with you guys. I couldn't hold my emotions back. And I sat there and I cried right in front of my boys. And I said, "You guys just don't understand how much I love you. If something happens to one of you guys, I will not survive that." And I knew it, and I meant it with my whole heart. And I knew it in my heart that if one of my boys dies on this deployment, I will likely commit suicide when we get home. And I knew it. I knew it with my whole heart. And I'd seen friends go through that, right? Guys, to this day, they haven't recovered from being in charge and watching one of their boys fall. And so every one of us, all of us senior guys, we went down the line telling them stories of ops we had been on, and we watched our friends die and how much we didn't want to see that happen to them. And that did it. That tuned them up.
Mhm.
They were good to go after that. But that was the day I was more afraid than I had ever been in my entire life. And I wasn't afraid for me. I was afraid that I was going to see one of my best friends in the whole world die, and that I was going to have to come back home and explain to their parents, their spouse, their kids, why I didn't bring them back home with me.
Mhm. Yeah, don't make me do that.
Wow, that's deep. I can imagine. That's rough.
Well, so let's talk about how that, because we've talked about your faith and we've talked about the leadership that takes, especially to sit down with you guys and go and be that honest, right? And so now you're doing consulting, right? So you do flash forward 20 years, because you do consulting, and from what I can tell us a little bit about it, because your consulting is leadership consulting, but it's also faith-based.
Yeah, so I want to work with a very specific persona. I want to work with men,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to work with men that love God and understand that whatever it is that they're going to do, if it's really important to them, they better give it to God first.
Right.
And I want to work with men that want to be entrepreneurs, because I think God wants us all to be entrepreneurs. And so I just launched the Mission to Millions Challenge for those men. And what that is it is a webinar where I am going to, over the 60 to 90 minutes, I am going to walk aspiring entrepreneurs step by step through how to launch a 7-figure business so fast it'll make their head spin. And they're going to not just get the instruction, but we're going to go through templates that I'm going to give them and frameworks that I'm going to give them, so that by the time they get out of this webinar, they can go and launch their business and start running as quickly as they can towards 7 figures in revenue. But those are the type of men that I coach. I also do leadership development workshops for large companies as well. And I'm having a lot of fun doing that, because I feel like I'm living within my purpose. So I still have CommSafe Ai over here, which is a venture capital backed artificial intelligence company. We're kind of going in this direction because we're in the middle of an M&A transaction that I'm trying to get done. So I'm fully focused for the most part on Hero Consulting, because I've always felt like that was my goal, was to have CommSafe Ai get acquired and then go on and teach other people how to do what I did, so that they can become wealthy as well. And so with Hero Consulting, that's what I'm doing, is I'm focusing on teaching men that it's your job to build generational wealth for your family, not your woman's job. It's your job. That's what the good book says, right? And don't laugh at my pink Bible. My girl gave it to me. Right? But it's your job. And I'm teaching them that. And personally, I think God wants you to be an entrepreneur, because he gave every one of us our own special, unique talents and gifts that he didn't give to other people. And I think that God wants us to build businesses. He wants us to be fruitful and multiply. He wants us to use that fruit that he put into us and become fruitful and share it with other people. And he wants us to multiply, meaning to increase, meaning not only are we going to give that fruit away, but we're going to sell it. Our friends are going to pay us a tremendous amount of money for it, because they got fruit in them too that I need, because they got special gifts and talents that God gave them, he didn't give to me. And the Bible also says iron sharpens iron, and a one man sharpens another.
Yep.
So you got fruit that I need, I'm going to pay you for it. I got fruit that you need, you're going to pay me for it, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And so I want men to realize that I think God wants us all to be entrepreneurs and to use the fruit that he gave us. Like
I think that's the most important thing. He wants he wants you to use what he gave you for a purpose that's positive, and that's his purpose, right? So
exactly, and in fact, I learned an amazing prayer from listening to Myron Golden, who's one of the business coaches that I like to follow, but he teaches a lot about King Solomon's business model and how he extracted it from the Bible, and how excited he was, because he's like, no, you don't understand. The entire business model is right there in the Bible. And he talks about when God came to King Solomon, it was just like, hey, I'm going to give you anything you want. Make a wish. No, seriously, tell me what you want. And King Solomon being the wisest, richest man on the planet, didn't ask God for money and riches. He asked God for wisdom. He's like, I'm a king. I'm in charge of all these people. I don't know what I'm doing. Bless me with the wisdom that I need to fulfill the purpose that you put me on this planet to fulfill, and in a manner that is pleasing to you. And Lord God, bless me with the wisdom that I need to serve all these people you've made me responsible for in a manner that is pleasing to you.
Right.
And I think that that's what he wants us to do. And so I'm taking the fruit that I have inside of me, and I'm trying to focus on, Lord God, how do I serve these people with the fruit that you gave me?
Yeah. And see, I think that's the right model. I always tell people, if your pastor's preaching politics from the pulpit, or if your pastor's preaching the prosperity gospel, you need to find a new church. However, that does not go the other way. If you have a business where the guy is saying, listen, I'm going to teach you business, and I'm going to do it from, a faith-based perspective, that's how everything should go, in my opinion. But hey, what do I know? So that has launched. That is something people can get now. You look on the screen, it's Hero Consulting, but it's Hero, Hiro, and you can get it at www.wearehero, again, hiro.com. And then you are also on the socials, right? Instagram and YouTube. People can find you at
Coach Ty Smith.
And then LinkedIn.
And then LinkedIn, yeah. Yep. And it's actually Ty Smith 31 at 31. The end of the LinkedIn link. But yep. I'm also at Coach Ty Smith on Instagram.
We changed that and it didn't change. Let's try it again. Let's see. There we go.
There we go. Nice.
Anyway, so there's all the communication information. And it's been a blast having you on the show. We would love to have you back. We should have Ty come on Locker Room. I would just love to.
I would love to.
Especially, we've got some other things in common that I'll mention after we get off the air about personal and reality lives, because Chuck and I will talk about the show. We'll talk about our careers, but I try to stay out of my current career on here just because they don't need to be I'll keep them out of it. They're not a part of this. But Ty, we appreciate you, and you have an interesting dedication. And it came up. You had a lot of people that you could dedicate to. Obviously, Extortion, the crew of Extortion 17, all the warfighters you've served with. But this is something that's near and dear to you because it came up recently. And it's somebody that may not have served, but has certainly made themselves available to those who have. So what's your dedication this episode?
Yeah, I would like to dedicate this episode to an amazing woman named Amy Chang. Amy was one of my board members at CommSafe Ai. She's only 53 years old, and cancer took her away from us over the last couple of weeks. Amy's husband, Jordan, is in the Army. He's actually getting ready to retire from the Army very soon. Amy was one of the biggest veteran advocates I've ever met since the 10 years I retired from the military. She was one of my first 3 investors, and I've had 84 investors at this point, and she was number 3 to invest in me. Like right when I retired from the Navy, she was one of the first people to believe in me and support me as a brand new entrepreneur. And she taught me for the last 10 years. And this is someone that gave a tremendous amount of her personal time to supporting veterans. If it wasn't coaching at the Honor Foundation here in San Diego, it was hanging out at a co-work space, helping veterans like me figure out how to build a business for the very first time. And she was just an amazing human being. And she went home to be with our Lord and Savior over the last couple of weeks. And so I want to dedicate this episode to Amy Chang.
Well, rest easy, sister. We got it from here. Right. And we do, but we do have to get out of here because we are over time. But we appreciate you sticking around with us this long, Ty. I think your message is important enough that people need to hear it. And you can reach him, like I said, through @Coach Ty Smith, or through LinkedIn at Ty Smith 31, or www.wearehero.com, which is Hero Consulting. Again, that's HIRO, like big, like hero, like Japanese hero. Chuck, what do you have for us? Well, other than a muted mic.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Ty, for coming on. I do have one question to ask you, and I think this is something that I normally ask people. I ask it a lot when Tom's not here and when Tom is here. And Tom, don't kill me because I know we're already over. But I think this is important for people to hear. Maybe this is a little bit of advice that you can give some people. You've been through a lot. You've been through a lot of firefights. You've been through a lot of trauma. You've been through a lot. What keeps your mind solid? And if you could answer it quickly, what keeps your mind solid after everything that you've experienced?
My Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'd be absolutely lost without him, man. Absolutely lost.
I had a chief that he says,
Well,
we experienced a traumatic event, and he said, word of advice. He goes, people have asked me, how can you do this job and stay a Christian? He goes, how can you do this job and not?
Yeah.
So is what it is. So
it's very powerful. And I want to say thank you again, Ty, for coming on. Thank you all today for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us on Instagram at war_stories_official and our Facebook at War Stories Podcast. If you're already following us, we'd really appreciate it if you could share all of our posts. Help spread the word. You can also check out the link in our bio on both platforms to find all of our social media, our media links, our website, and our podcast is available on all major streaming platforms, including YouTube. And on YouTube, make sure to hit the notification bell, like, comment, all that stuff, subscribe. That way, every time we drop a new episode or we go live, you get notified. We've had a few of our friends that have followed us and actively watch us on the live, but they haven't hit that notification bell. They're like, I haven't seen you guys in a while because I don't know when you guys go on. I'm like, hey, numbnuts, hit that notification bell and you will be notified every single time we go live, because we always go live on YouTube. If you'd like to support us, head over to our website at www.warstoriesofficial.com. Grab some merch. Do you have a story to tell, or somebody does? We're always looking for law enforcement, veterans, corrections officers, dispatchers, firefighters, medics, ER docs, and ER nurses to feature on the show. If you're interested, email us. Actually, don't email us. Go to linkedin.com /War Stories Podcast and contact Dylan there. You can also check us out at War Stories on LinkedIn. It's the War Stories on LinkedIn, or at the War Stories Podcast on LinkedIn, and you will find us. It's got a cool skull that you see right here with an American flag superimposed behind it. So that's us. Go there, contact Dylan. If you can't,
there it is.
Exactly, right there. And if you don't have a LinkedIn and you suck, it's okay. We still love you. Go to booking.warstories@gmail.com and we can get you booked. And then if you have a friend who you want to come on and you want to share their story, or you want to tell them about us, give them all that good info and then let us know. You can also check us out on TikTok.com at War Stories Locker Room. Our producer's LinkedIn is linkedin.com /War Stories Podcast. Go there, contact him. And thank you for all the support. Stay safe out there.
And until our next episode, come home with your shield or on it.